the Book 101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is my feature author of the month of December, seasoned podcaster, healthcare CEO, award-winning and best-selling author, and of course, a national speaker, no other than Miss Judy Gaman.
Thank you. It's so great to be on with you today.
Welcome, Miss Judy, on Book 101 Review. And thank you so much for being my featured author of the month of December. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, I'm a healthcare CEO. So I'm the CEO of Executive Medicine of Texas. And I love that we really tackle longevity and things. And it really ties into my book, Love, Life, and Lucille, which I know we're going to be talking about today because it's lessons learned from a centenarian. It's about the time I spent with Lucille Fleming, who I
Mhm.
met just after she turned 100. And we just became best friends until she died just 2 weeks shy of her 104th birthday.
Interesting, Miss Judy. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Thank you. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. So the title suggests this is more than a biography. It's about lessons in love and life. How did your relationship with Lucille evolve with a simple friendship into a catalyst for this book?
Well, I think the important thing to know is kind of how that friendship came to be. As you know, Daniel, I've authored several books, and at the time, I was working on a book called "Age to Perfection: How to Thrive to 100, Happy, Healthy, and Wise." And during that time, I was really doing a lot of like really reaching into the what the research was saying about the blue zones. That's where people live longer, healthier lives, and really taking it more from a scientific point of view. And then one day I had this, I guess you could call it an epiphany. Why don't I just like talk to the people who have made it over 100 and ask them, what's your top 10 uh, things that you did that you think make you 100 happy, healthy, wise? What was it that springboarded you into such great longevity? And during that time, I met Lucille Fleming, and she was just larger than life. And I also learned that 100 did not look anything like I thought it would look. I mean, with the people that I interviewed for the Age of Perfection book, it was just incredible to see how vibrant they were and how well they were doing. But Lucille was definitely special, and so much so that she went out on book tour with me. And nothing is more fun than traveling around the world with a centenarian, somebody over 100 who just still has it. All of the lessons that I learned from her during that 4 years just have shaped me so much.
So, Miss Judy, would you like to be a centenarian too?
If you would have asked me before I met Lucille and some of the others, I probably would have said, I don't know, maybe. But, now that I see what it can look like, and I absolutely, I mean, the best part about growing older and what I've seen, as long as you continue to keep your health, is that you actually go into it with your wisdom. And
Mhm.
it's just freeing when you're at that stage of your life, and all the little things don't really bother you the same way that maybe they did. You live through so much that it's not the end of the world anymore. It really just every day is just a blessing.
Every day is a blessing indeed. What was the specific moment or conversation with Lucille where you realized her stories had to be shared with a wider audience?
Well, we were actually out on, like I said, out on book tour, and we just finished an interview. And she just always stole the show. I mean, just stole the show. But it was always in those quiet moments too, where we'd go out to eat afterwards, or we'd go out to eat actually every Friday. And she just kind of shared this insight that I really felt the world was missing. But also there was a deeper thing that I realized at one particular lunch as we were talking. It hit me that it doesn't matter where we grew up. It doesn't matter how we grew up. It doesn't matter what decade we grew up in. The human experience is the same. We all get to taste love. We all get to know what pain feels like, disappointment, maybe disappointment in ourselves, the thrill of accomplishing something. And that's really what that human experience is. And I thought there's so much wisdom in the things that she and I are talking about that I really wanted to be able to share that wisdom with others. And I did tell her before she died. She knew I was working on a book. I told her I wanted to write a book about us and about our friendship and about her. And it was a really neat moment. I wish she could have been alive when the book was finished. I really do. I know she would have loved it. And it was such a tribute, but it wasn't really until after she passed that that final chapter was written.
Miss Judy, Lucille witnessed a century of change. What was her most surprising perspective in our modern world, and what did it teach you about what truly matters?
Well, there was a time that she and I were talking politics, and we were in the car, and she said, I have seen presidents come and presidents go. She came from Canada, very different there, and came to the United States in the middle of the Depression with a suitcase in her hand and a locket around her neck, and was coming to America so that she could have that American dream. And she put herself through school. And we're thinking about a woman in
Mm-hmm.
the 30s. I mean, think about that. How much that whole thing seems so unreal. And those experiences that she had. I mean, it's amazing. It really is amazing. And just hearing her tell those stories and hearing her even share that, all the things she had seen oh, we're going to go to war. No, we're not going to go to war. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. And all the worry that she had told me had transpired during her life that turned out to be nothing to worry about in the end. And some things that did turn out to be something worthwhile worrying about always worked out eventually. I think that really helped me as a mother, as a wife, and especially as a CEO to not get so caught up in things that maybe next week won't matter, or maybe in a year won't matter, or maybe 5 years, or maybe a decade later isn't going to matter. It's all about putting things into perspective.
Miss Judy, beyond the major historical events, what is small, everyday wisdom from Lucille had most profound impact for your own daily life?
I think a lot of it was things that she would say. Like she would say, when I'm tired, I rest. And that just seems so foreign and so against our culture that when we're tired, we plug through. We just keep on going. And she said, "Nope, when you're tired, you rest. That's how it works." And things like that, but also the importance of not holding on to a grudge and how it will just really destroy you as a human being. The thing that she shared, that every one of the centenarians that I spoke with and interviewed for the other book, they all mentioned a few things. And they said, you got to have a lot of friends. And Lucille would say, you got to have younger friends. When you get her age, you always got to have younger friends.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, they all said you got to give it up to a higher power because you can't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. And even just the daily exercise. Now think about this. These people grew up at a time when gyms weren't even invented. There wasn't such thing as let me go to the gym and work out. Nobody talked about aerobics. Nobody knew half the things that we know now about heart disease and such. But what they did know is that when they were physically working, when they were on their feet or physically working, whether it was on the farm or it was in whatever aspect, they realized that that made them feel better. And I think there's some wisdom in that, that really they learned how to pay attention to their body at a time when there weren't so many distractions that we tend to have today. And just spending some time with Lucille and with the others really taught me that, we really do need to take a little time to pay attention to what's going on with our bodies. Are we tired? Are we hungry? Do we feel bad when we eat this particular thing? Do we need to rest more? How's our sleep? All of those things that, as a healthcare CEO, we preach every day to,
Mm-hmm.
to people, but it's really a matter of finding out how to do that in a natural way. Not because you're checking a box, but because you really understand that if you want to live a long and healthy life, you have to take care of yourself.
You need to take care of yourself for sure to be a centenarian. So, on Lucille's characters and centenarian wisdom, what was Lucille's single most powerful secret to a long and well lived life? What is the attitude, diet, relationship, or something else entirely?
It really was about forgiveness. It really was. I mean, it all comes down to, there's gonna be times in your life when you're hurt. And that forgiveness and mustering up that forgiveness, she really believed was at the root of everything. And I didn't know until she passed away, which is why the end of this book is so powerful. I didn't know how important that one piece of wisdom was going to be. It was all important, but that particular thing was so important. And I think the best, part about this book is, I've had people from all over the world tell me that have read this book. Oh my gosh, I laughed so hard I almost peed myself. Or, oh, I was crying. I was crying. Oh my gosh, you got to put a mascara alert out. Once you get past this page, you really don't need to read it in public. And then they were like, oh, I was so mad at this point. I wanted to throw the book across the room. And then in the end, they're like, you know what? At the end, you just know, oh, okay, it all worked out. But I love how it's such a metaphor for life. How often do we feel that way? We're laughing one minute, we're crying the next, we're really mad as heck, and then in the end we can have that retrospect and say, you know what? It really did work out okay.
Hmm. Yes, definitely. Centenarian like Lucille has incredible resilience. Can you share a story of how navigated a profound loss or difficulty and what that taught you about weathering your own storms?
Yeah, there's several of them that I share in the book, but I think one that was really heartfelt that she talked to me about was when she was a young girl and her dear best friend died from consumption. And this was something that happened a lot in that time.
Mm-hmm.
And her mom's the friend's mom brought Lucille in and gave her dear best friend's locket. And I talked about Lucille coming to the United States with a locket around her neck and a suitcase in her hand, and that's the locket that she had with her when she came. She carried that with her. And she really felt like she could take that pain of losing that best friend at such a tragic age, such a young age, as a young girl, having to really understand death and all this, and that she could do something good with it. And she really came to the United States and became a nurse, put herself through nursing school so she could help others that were going through something so difficult in their own lives and that were unhealthy, and she could make a difference. And I just love how she took that pain and that unknown of her life and turned it into something just so great. I mean, she actually did so many great things with her nursing degree.
Miss Judy, with a century of experience, how did Lucille define love? How had her understanding, if it changed for her youth to her later years.
She told me a story, and I share this in a book. I love this story
Mm-hmm.
because she grew up as on a farm. Her family was a potato farmer. They lived on a potato farm, and she had this boy that was just the talk of the town. The family was very, very wealthy. All the girls just loved this boy, and this boy kind of liked her, and they were the first ones in the town to get a car, and just the the way the other girls like envied her that this boy really liked her, and she really didn't feel that deep down love for him. And even though everyone thought she was crazy, and she left Canada and Prince Edward Island, where she was, and she left this boy behind who desperately wanted to marry her. And then she found the love of her life. And she had a good life. She had a great life. She had a great husband. But I love how she followed her heart. She didn't let the world tell her what her husband should be like. What she didn't take that opportunity to say, "Oh, I can marry into to money, or I can, raise my family status up by going with this man." And she really, really held true to what she knew in her heart she would find, and that was true love.
True love indeed. And Miss Judy as award-winning and a best-selling author, as well as seasoned podcaster. What are your short-term and long-term goals?
Well, I my short-term goal is I've been working on turning a portion of this book into a screenplay. The screenplay is called The Other F Word, and I take the other F word being the word forgiveness, and I take a lot of Lucille and the stories in the book, but I also mix that with my own childhood, and my mother is the third character who's briefly mentioned in the book, but it goes so much deeper. And I'm very excited. I've been working with some incredible people on this, including Joan Lane, who worked on The King's Speech and was just a great developing producer for that incredible film. And so that's a short-term goal, is to get that in the right hands and to get that turned into to something on the big screen. I think it would be great tribute, really, to Lucille. I always said she really was old Hollywood, just didn't know it. And,
Mm,
my long-term goals are really about taking some life lessons from Lucille, and
yeah.
and really learning how in the second half of my life, this happens when you turn 50, you start thinking about what's the next 50 years going to be like, and taking some of those lessons and really just taking them to heart.
Yes, definitely. And good luck to your goals, Miss Judy. And looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
I think the best advice I can give is something that I really found when I was with Lucille, and that is, when here she was at 102 and 103 going out on book tour with me, and she was for the Age to Perfection book, and she was just larger than life, and everybody loved her. Everybody loved her. And she one day looked at me and she said, I think I've got a new calling. And I said, yeah, you do. You're a longevity expert. And that kind of triggered something that I really always love to share. And that is, as long as you are on this earth and you have breath in your lungs, you have a purpose. And sometimes you just have to go out and find it.
Yes, definitely. And thank you for that advice, Miss Judy. And can you please recommend a book of books that influenced your journey?
Oh my gosh, I got to tell you, I love this book. I have it right here. I want to show it to you. It's called The Pivot Year. And if you
Mm-hmm.
haven't done this Pivot Year book, Brianna Weiss is brilliant. I've gifted that book to so many people, and I've read it. And one night a week, read a page. I've marked in it. I'm now to the end of my second year. Just used a different different colored ink, and it's amazing how different things tend to speak to you, and just for what segment of your life you're in and what season. And I've just loved that book. It's been life changing. As so many people I've given it to said it just was amazing how they would open it up and they would read that day and something just spoke to them on the deepest level. I love the book. I think everyone should read it.
Definitely, I like Brana Weiss. 101 essays, too, if you want to read one of her books. So, Miss Judy, thank you so much for your recommended book. And tell us, if you had to distill Lucille wisdom into one central lesson for living a good life, what would it be?
I really believe that if I had to do it in one lesson, it would be surround yourself with people who you can love and who will love you back.
Yes, it's priceless. Priceless indeed. And what's the simple, actionable piece of advice from Lucille that our listeners could apply today to bring more joy or peace into their lives?
Have a hobby. Have a hobby because it's something that you're not doing for money and you're simply doing it because you just find enjoyment in it. Her hobby was duplicate bridge.
Oh,
And
nice.
she was over 100 playing duplicate bridge and winning. And I think it's so important to have a hobby that you really really like. And as you age, those hobbies should usually be around other people because it's so good to socialize.
Yes. People podcasting is my hobby, so even I'm tired doing my day job, I still have the dedication to do it because I love what I'm doing. In the age of constant distraction and hassle, what did Lucille life teach you about the importance of showing down and being present?
Well, I was and still continue to struggle a little bit, but not nearly as much as before I met Lucille. I was a third generation workaholic and really wearing that, 60-hour week like a badge of honor, and
Mm-hmm.
just, thinking that busy was a good word. And she kind of taught me that busy is a four-letter word. It's not necessarily a good word. And it's so important that you take the time, just like you're doing, on this podcast, and just like you do on every interview. You take the time to really hear someone else's story, share someone else's story, to be a part of this whole thing we call life.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And thank you so much for empowering us, Miss Judy Gaman. Thank you, thank you. So what do you
Thank you.
hope So, what do you hope is the main feeling or takeaway readers is left with after turning the final page of Love, Life, and Lucille?
I think friendship is just really understanding the meaning of friendship. I've had so many people reach back out to me and say, "Gosh, I got to have a friend like that." And then they'll say, "I guess I got to be a friend like that." And seeing kind of both sides of that. In today's world and social media, we think that friends are, they give you a thumbs up on a post, or, a like. And that's not really what friendship's about. Friendship is about really being there and getting to know someone on a deeper level, being there to help them. Lucille and I both helped each other so much. And the chapters of this book just share a beautiful friendship.
A beautiful friendship indeed. So, how can we all better seek out and listen to the Lucille's in our own communities? And why is it integrational or integrational connection so vital?
Well, there's so much to be learned. I mean, basically, it's unburied treasure. I mean, there's people living all around us that have such treasures inside of them, such wisdom inside of them. And
Yes.
it's a shame if we don't get that out of them before it's too late. There's just so much wisdom. And I wish that we did, and I hope that we start doing this more, is really appreciating our elderly and really, taking the time to get to know them, hearing their stories, taking a true interest, and then also seeking advice.
Yes.
When I was hanging out with Lucille, there were so many times I would ask her advice, and it would have to do with my job, or something with my family, and she always just had this completely different perspective, and it was refreshing, and it was great, and it changed my own perspective.
Miss Judy, Lucille lived through it all, from the Great Depression to the digital age. What did she teach you about adapting to change without losing your core self?
Well, I think there's some fun things about that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is to really adapt, but to always stick to your true self. It's funny to me that here she was over 100 and she would still wear her heels. And most of the time she was in a dress. And she just said, heels make a girl's legs look nice and long. Yeah, there's some things that she just said, this is just me. And she always dressed up for every meal because she was true to some of those things that were her. But as far as adapting, she adapted all the time. I mean, she was still working when computers came out. She had to, learn computers, and she was working, at an age when they were coming out, but she was already in her, 70s, and using computers for work. And she had a phone, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people that age, they don't text, they don't do some of these things. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that she adapted to that kind of technology, and really encouraged everyone around her to. Whenever she would see somebody her age saying, "Oh, well, I need to go get somebody younger to do that," she's like, "Oh, no, no, you need to learn how to do this." And she would actually teach herself how to do things or ask somebody else to teach her. I love that she was a lifelong learner.
Lifelong learner indeed. So, Miss Judy, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in third season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101, love letters, movie 101 review, music 101, our fourth season. Science 101, Sex 101 in second season, I'm a Baby Podcast, Law 101, Mental Health 101, and Bible Verses 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Judy, tell us the book is a beautiful testament to life well lived. Now that you've shared Lucille's legacy, what has this experience taught you about the power of storytelling to connect us all?
Well, a few things. I think when you're a workaholic, you don't really take the time to ask people their stories. And as I would be out and about, and I would be at lunch with Lucille, we would have these conversations with the wait staff, with anybody who would have a conversation. Sometimes they just sit down at the table and we'd have these conversations. And what I found is everybody has a story inside of them. And so as a CEO, I have really taken that lesson of really taking the time to ask questions and be truly, truly interested. And that has helped me so much to really deal with the people that work in our company in a way that is genuine, and in a way that I can really help raise them up to be leaders within their own life, and help them with tackling maybe some of their own issues, being that mentor that I was so lucky to have, to be that mentor to other people.
Yes. And Miss Judy Gaman, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Being my feature author of the month of December, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your books, your advocacy, your podcast, or anything you want to promote on Book 101?
Sure, they can follow me at judygaman.com. That's JUDYGAMAN.com. You can get Love, Life, and Lucille either as a paperback, or you can get it as an audio or an ebook on Amazon or wherever books are sold. And then if you're interested in the Practice Executive Medicine of Texas, go to emtexas.com.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Judy Gaman, because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come. More and more empowering advocacy will rise. My feature author of the month of December, award-winning and best-selling author, Miss Judy Gaman. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Monica, people, see you soon.